I called 53 phone numbers. I don't remember exactly how many I spoke to, probably over 40. There was very few that did not answer.
So real world, a little bit easier to find information and kind of not have to do so many things that kind of take up a lot of the time.
Welcome to episode 8 of Market Moves with Mark and Jeff. In this episode, we will be covering PERIA graduates, getting to meet some of the first folks to cross the finish line here and become appraisers. It's a really exciting time. And of all this talk that we've had in the first episodes about PERIA, and even the last several years, maybe even half a decade, that folks from the Appraisal Foundation and those in the appraisal community have been talking about new pathways. All of this is really here to help create new appraisers. We got 2 of them with them here now, and really excited to be talking to them. So let's bring them in.
Very good. With us, we have Pete and Chris. Really excited to have you guys here. Thank you for making some time to come and talk with Mark and I. Really looking forward to hearing kind of what your experience has been going through the program and all of those things. But first things first, why don't you tell us a little bit about your professional life that led up to PERIA, or how did you kind of get to the point of deciding to jump into the PERIA course? Chris, we start with you.
Yeah, I was in the nonprofit sector for most of my time leading up. And then me and my wife had a baby, and she also is in the military. So her first residency is in San Antonio. So we decided to kind of switch roles, and I was going to be more of the caretaker for the first couple of years. And now we're a couple of years in, and I was looking for something else to do in addition to be a stay-at-home dad, and kind of got into the real estate sector and decided, after meeting a friend who was also an appraiser, to kind of jump in that sector.
Pete, what led you to up to PERIA?
So I've been an educator for 24 years. Started in the fall of 2000. I am a former band director. I did that for 8 years, sorry. Then in 2008, I became a school administrator. I've been an assistant principal ever since. I did not know anything about the appraising background. I don't have any appraising background. I didn't know that was a career. But my friend, Jesse, who is a certified appraiser here in Texas, he started talking to me about it, I think maybe like 2017, 2018, but I still did not know what it was at all. In 2018, I did go through a divorce, a painful divorce, and I voluntarily surrendered 20% of my earnings for my daughter. And I have an excellent relationship with my ex-wife, but at the same time, I did want to, ever since then, I've been wanting to recuperate those 20% earnings that I voluntarily surrendered, and then of course transition into what I hope to be an exciting post-retirement career, my second career, which was appraising. And once again, my friend Jesse kept talking to me about it, and I said, he invited me to go on a couple of trips to measure houses, and I just fell in love with everything. I told him, where do I sign up? How do I get into this? He told me about the TALCB website. I called right away the very next day. Super helpful at TALCB. And shortly thereafter, I heard about something called PAREA back then. They called PAREA, and then PERIA, and then there was even an article about what to call it, and so on and so forth. This lady that is not with TALCB, but she works in the appraising industry. I forgot her name, but she told me, there's going to be this program called PERIA, and you're going to want to sign up for it, because if you can't find a mentor, well, this is going to be your best option. Luckily, my friend Jesse accepted to be my mentor, but I felt that that train was moving kind of slow, and I wanted to get more experience, right? And I hopped on the first opportunity. I signed up on the Appraisal Institute website. As soon as that one came open, I got an email from Chelsea Bishop, also excellent at the Appraisal Institute. And I jumped on it. I was part of the pilot group. And I'm just fascinated with everything in the Appraisal Institute, the appraisal industry as a whole. So very happy to be here.
Fantastic. Well, we'll certainly welcome both of you, not just to the appraisal industry here, but to the podcast. Excited to have you. I think those watching will not believe that the fix wasn't in, that I'm here in Houston, Texas. Chris, you in San Antonio, Pete, you in Laredo. I think that's right.
Laredo, yes, Laredo, Texas.
Yeah, all right. So we're all South Texas boys here, but excited to have you guys here. And Chris, you are of recent fame from an article, I think, that was covering your licensure through this PERIA process. That's right. Is it TALCB that wrote it? Where did that come from?
Yeah, it was TALCB. They reached out after I believe I passed the licensing exam. I got an email a couple days later asking to do a little blurb about me, and was shocked to later find my face on the front of the website.
Hey, the blurb wasn't so little. We'll make sure to link it in the show notes here for everybody that would like to read it. Pete, I'm sure there will be articles written about you here shortly as well. I'm sure you folks didn't realize that you'd be celebrities in our little appraisal celebrities in our small circle that we have here, but we really welcome you, and that's exciting. So with Pete kind of describing having a mentor available but slow moving, and seeing PERIA as an option, Chris, what was your pathway to PERIA? Did you have other options?
So initially, I thought I was going to be a trainee under a mentor. I think that's the term that they use. Mm-hmm. But we had gotten to the point where I was signing paperwork for employment, and realized that he didn't have the 3 years as a certified residential appraiser, although he'd been in the industry kind of as a trainee and then a certified general, but he didn't have the 3 years. So essentially, I was either going to have to wait a couple of years for him to finish those 3 years, or jump on this new PAREA thing that he didn't know about, and really nobody at the company knew about. I just independently did some research and was like, I don't know if this is real or not, but it seems like it could fit my lifestyle perfectly, and kind of set me up faster than waiting around.
Boy, that's fantastic. I mean, I don't know if you guys are probably too new into it to have a full understanding. And one of the reasons why Jeff and I have been supportive of this PERIA process and program pathway is because of how difficult it is to break in. Even if you have a mentor, which many folks don't have the good fortune that you do to know somebody that's in it. But to find somebody, you can spend hours or years, literally years. And when you find someone, the process can be so slow while you're in another career, trying to get there. It just takes a long time to get there. So, I'm glad you guys found this pretty entrepreneurial of you and investigative of you guys to find it. Jeff, I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I think in an offline conversation, Pete, if I remember right, you had reached out to a number of appraisers in an effort to expedite this process, trying to get anybody that not even just to hire you, but to work on some assignments with you that you could log. Remind me again how many people you reached out to trying to get some level of experience, even just with like sample appraisal reports.
Yeah, I went back to my notes because I'm a person that writes everything down. I reached out to 53 appraisers in the state of Texas. Reason for that is, once again, my friend Jesse is amazing. But he has so much work, and I have a full-time job. I work at an elementary school as an assistant principal. Like I said, that's my day job. And so I'm only limited to afternoons and weekends. And so Jesse would do the best that he could to help me. But I also read on the TALCB website that if you start doing sample reports, you could send them to certified appraisers and they'd have to sign off on them. And those would count as hours. And so I got on the phone and I just Google, right? Appraisers, and I called 53 phone numbers. I don't remember exactly how many I spoke to, probably over 40. There was very few that did not answer, but all of them turned me down. And I understand. I mean, they're very busy, and a lot of them had already trainees under their leadership, so they couldn't help me. And that's around the time where I would kept getting more information about PERIA, and it just worked out perfectly for me, because it, before I knew it, I was in touch with Ms. Bishop, from AI, and that's why I'm here.
That's awesome. Now, Mark wasn't one of those that you called that turned you down, was he?
No, I don't think so. I would have remembered that, especially the last time I would have remembered. No, Mark.
We would have had a hard time getting you on to talk to us if Mark had turned you down originally. I
know. I will say, Jeff, and we've talked about this on previous episodes, that I mean, it's an accidental consequence of the way this stuff is set up, is that all of those 53 appraisers have at least some reason to think that you might be competition that they're training, right? And the nature of the only way, this traditional way to become an appraiser, it's inherent that there's part of that, right? So not everybody feels that way, not everybody sees it that way, but you can certainly see how someone might feel that way.
Yeah, it's just hard to break through. And yeah, we've talked to other people that have called, on the order that you're talking about, Chris, 50, 100 people in one case that I heard of. And it's hard. It's unfortunate that it happens that way, but it is the reality until there's this alternative way to gain the experience that you have to. One of the other things that we talked about in a most recent episode was the aspects of kind of the financial part of paying for or getting into the program itself. We had discussed some options, and it was kind of interesting, kind of fun, I think, to hear your specific pathways or at least arrangements there. Would love to hear if you guys had any arrangements, whether through an employer, whether through scholarship or otherwise, to help cover the cost of PERIA.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have my now employer, Sin & Green and Associates, actually pay for my PERIA courses, which was very nice. I did the qualifying education, and that's also a kind of a sizable amount that you have to pay out of pocket. And then seeing this, I knew it was something I wanted to do, and I could have, we could have funded it if we really needed to, but the company also saw value in me kind of progressing and being able to move right into being an appraiser, as opposed to, being a licensed or being a trainee, and kind of being paid hourly, as opposed to just being able to jump right in there. So I think it was beneficial for them, and I'm going to be theoretically paying that back on future paychecks. But, paying that up front was a big help for me, and it allowed me to do it a lot quicker than I probably would have done otherwise.
For me, of course, if I was going to do this, I was going to finance it myself. That was the plan the whole time. I did need to have, obviously, a very serious conversation with my wife as I was working through my qualifying courses through McKissick. And then, of course, we got the price for PERIA. And around that time, I'm kind of like you, Mark. I don't think anything happens by accident. I think everything happens for a reason at a certain time in life. I was listening to the news or something like that, and somebody said in the news, if you're going to bet on anybody, you bet on yourself, and you do things for yourself if you feel strongly about it, because, if you want things done in a certain way, or, you just bet on yourself, and you can never go wrong with that. And so we had a dinner conversation with my wife, and I told her, I'm really passionate about this. I really want to do this. And she gave me the okay. And that was the only approval that I needed. So, having said that, when I got into PERIA, I mean, everything, like I said, everything went in sequential order after that.
Fantastic. Really exciting. And Jeff and I have talked about this largely because you hear those kind of stakeholders and those in the industry that are trying to set this program up discuss this quite a bit. I read from both of you too that the value of this curriculum and getting through this and kind of graduating from it was far more than the cost, far more value than the cost of the program. Is that how you see it?
No, the only thing I forgot, Mark and Jeff, that I was so grateful for the Appraisal Institute. I did apply for a scholarship.
Oh, wow.
They did reward me with the scholarship, so that helped. That helped tremendously. But even without the scholarship, I would have gone forward, with it, because I really believe in it.
Beautiful. And for those prospective PERIA students that may be watching this, important to know that the Appraisal Institute is earmarking some 60 PERIA scholarships a year for participants and students. So in previous episodes, we've talked about where those scholarship applications are and how to get them. But AIERF at the Appraisal Institute is the group within that offers those scholarships. So fantastic. Would definitely encourage folks to go look at those and apply. Awesome. And Chris, before I get to the next question, I want to make sure we give credit to a very thoughtful appraiser firm. Did you say Cindy Green and Associates?
It's Sin & Green and Associates. They're out of Virginia Beach.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Yeah, I think Jeff and I had suggested this on the Show Me the Money episode of PERIA that we had put together, which was exactly this point that, hey, I can pay somebody maybe a salary for 2 years while they slowly get the experience to get their license, or I can help them pay for PERIA and get somebody for a fifth of the cost of that salary for 2 years and have somebody with a license that can actually help in the office. Awesome. So kudos to them for being thoughtful in that way. That's awesome. Okay, so we've got kind of mini rapid fire questions about PERIA, your experience within the program. I think a lot of folks would be watching, say, man, I don't know if I'm not a good test taker. I don't know if I got time to get through this. I just don't know what it would be like. I kind of have an understanding of what it would be like to write reports one at a time with a mentor and doing live work, but what is it like being in the PERIA program? So first question I've got to you first, Chris, is how long did it take you roughly, in months, how long did it take you to get through the first module of PERIA, which is the licensed residential module?
Yeah, to get through the first 10 assignments, not including the final assignments, it was 5 months to get all that completed. So it wasn't that bad. There's some hard stops in there with your first 5 assignments, which kind of will take a little bit more time than the remaining 5. But yeah, 5 months was moving pretty fast in that.
Okay, and how many hours is it a week? How would you look at that? Like, what was your habit stack trying to get through this? Are you working every day on it? Are you working just 5 hours a week? What did it look like?
I was trying to treat it like a job. So again, I was still staying at home with my kid. We had daycare, I think 2 or 3 times a week at that point. So any days off, I was doing the entire time he was at daycare. When he went to sleep, I would do another 2, 3, 4 hours, depending on what I had going. But yeah, I would put my 40 plus hours a week in most of the time.
Fantastic. Not easy to do, but obviously passionate about getting through this. So Pete, how long did it take you to get through PERIA, and maybe talk a little bit about what your those weeks look like as you were trying to pump out the program?
I was part of the pilot program, so I believe I started in mid to late July, and I finished, I want to say, at the end of January for my 10 assignments. January, February, I forgot the dates, the month. I'm sorry. So it took me about 7 months, 7, 8 months, something like that. And then I took about 3 months with the final assignments. Those were very, very rigorous, but I appreciated them because they were through an anonymous grader. And so we went back and forth and so on and so forth. So all in all, like I said, about 7 or 8 months to finish the 10 assignments, and then about another 3 months to finish the final assignments. So, and then as far as like my schedule, once again, since I have a full-time job, I'm an early person by nature. So I would be working on it mostly between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. And then go to work. And then as soon as I got back and we fed the kids dinner, I was back on the computer probably, let's say 6 and maybe to 9. So that was my schedule, 5 to 7 and 6 to 9 during the week. and then Saturday and Sunday, just at all hours. And I was really lucky. I want to give kudos to my mentor, Dana Thornberry from Kentucky. She's just amazing. She's just incredible. We developed a routine. It was a certain rhythm where I would submit an assignment, for example, in the morning before I went to work. And by the time I was done with my morning duty at school to receiving the kids and so on and so forth, I could check my email. I couldn't work on PERIA, obviously, at work, but I could check my email. And she already had feedback for me. And so by the time that I got home, I knew what I needed to fix. And it was just a certain rhythm to it. Even, she sacrificed her Saturdays sometimes. Even I would get emails on Sundays. And so, I don't know exactly how many hours I would put in a week average, I would say at least maybe 30 or so. But it was like just the constant flow of information coming back to me and feedback, and then me submitting the assignments. And of course, the quizzes, not the quiz, but the questions that go before you submit an assignment, giving you the theory background behind it. I really value that because I come from the education business, not anything related to real estate or anything like that. So I really value that because once again, my friend Jesse, he's amazing. He's certified, but he's in the field. He's in the trenches. He is pumping out reports. And so I don't know if he would have had the time. I know he wants to, but I don't know if he would have had the time to really teach me the theory behind it and say, this is why you do this in this section of the report. And that's where Dana came in, and of course the actual PERIA module.
Well, a big shout out to Dana Thornberry and the PERIA mentors at the Appraisal Institute. They are phenomenal appraisers, really good people, and working hard to make this thing a reality. So big shout out to them, and appreciate you guys mentioning them. So what prerequisite appraisal classes did you take coming into this? So there's roughly 75 hours that you need to take here in Texas, at least. Where did you take those classes, and how did that prepare you?
Yeah, I took mine through McKissick, and I can't even remember how many hours it is now, but I did all the hours for certified residential.
Okay.
So I think I knocked those out in 2 or 3 months. But yeah, it is more of understanding terms and definitions, I would say, as opposed to getting into the application and the theory behind it. So, you would look at, land valuation and figure out the ways to do that as far as the definitions. But here you got into the nitty gritty of figuring out how to actually do that in a real world scenario. So it was beneficial, but it was more of a building block than anything.
Great.
Same thing with me. I went through McKissick. I did 125 hours. And so also for certified residential, because that is my ultimate goal, to get to certified residential. But same thing. Couldn't have said it better. Chris was spot on. It was more of a building block, but it's still valuable because once again, somebody not having any type of background in this area, I found it very beneficial, and I was able to finish it. I want to say 6 to 8 months, something like that.
Yeah. Boy, you guys are two hard-charging dudes. I can tell that, kind of taking the maximum number of classes. I think the way you guys are setting that up with kind of a definitions in the pre stuff and then moving into application theory, I imagine that isn't an easy jump that a lot of people could make. But you being hard-charging and I imagine made that jump a little easier than it might be for some. Yeah. All right, Jeff.
Awesome. Well, so you guys have alluded a little bit to kind of what the program was like in the sense of what you actually did. I'm hearing you saying having participated or having written 10 reports and then an additional 3 reports. What was your experience, and how did those differ, or how did it progress for you individually as you started with the first case study or report that you wrote up through the kind of the final one? Talk to us or give us a little bit of insight as to what that looked like for you guys.
Yeah, I would say all the way through the first 5 assignments, the last 5, they're very similar as far as the actual data that you're getting into. You just get more comfortable, obviously, with writing reports the more that you do them. And again, different reports would have different ways that you had to value either the land or the building, cost approach, all the different ways of doing it. So they kind of built on each other. But for the most part, the actual report writing should have been similar. It's just, I'm sure looking back at my first assignment, I would be not as proud as I would be now writing a similar thing. So
that every appraiser who ever got certified and then started writing something on their own, there's always that trepidation of, oh crap, I have to send this thing out and I don't have a safety net. You look back on your early work and we all, realize, oh yeah, I didn't know as much as I thought I did back then.
Same thing with me. Once again, I have a band director background, and I used to start my kids in 6th grade. And when you start kids in 6th grade band, they're going to sound very different than in 7th and 8th grade. So for me, my first assignment, I don't know if I would want to look at it because I wasn't too comfortable with it. But once again, kudos to Dana. She took me under her wing, and I was like a sponge. I was just absorbing everything, learning. And so by the time I got, like Chris said, the first 5 assignments and the second 5 are similar. So by the time I got to my second set of assignment, I guess 6 through 10, I was very comfortable with it, but I was still learning. I felt it was like a scaffolding thing, where whatever you learned before, you use that, but then you learn something new. And I think I said this before with our previous conversation. In education, the business that I'm in, in my opinion, you're only as good as your teacher, and we say this to our staff every year. The river will rise as high as its source. And if you have a source that just pushes you to the limit and is very nitpicky, I remember telling Dana, I want you to be extra hard with me. I want you to, not let things go by so I can learn, because that's the only way that I'm going to learn. And of course, she was very detail oriented, commas, periods, why this, you shouldn't say this here because, you might be misleading the client. There was always a reason for her giving me her feedback. And so I felt that by the time I got to the final assignments, I was like, ready, let's go, let's do this, so, and of course I learned even more, during the final assignments, but from assignment 1 to assignment 10, I think I was a very different student. So.
Well, and that's exactly what you'd expect. And I love your education background where you have training in how to educate people. And now you're going through this educational, program itself. What was the difference between the first 10 and then the last 3 assignments? Because I'm hearing that there were 3 final assignments as well. How was that different than what you did on the first 10?
I can compare it to training wheels. The training wheels came off in the last 3 assignments. I remember sending a real nice email to Dana. I said, "You trained me well. It's time for me to go out into the jungle by myself. And I promise not to contact you because we're not supposed to too much, and I need to do this." So it was just that for me, that was the initial, I guess, shock. I don't know if that's the correct word, but just the initial thing of the wheels coming off. I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing this, and I can't contact Dana. So, but once I got through that though, like I remembered my trainings, right? And I went back to my previous assignments and okay, this is what you do here and here and here. And then we had two opportunities, right? To complete the report. Super nervous when I was turning them in. But once I got comfortable with the report, it's like muscle memory, right? You remembered, oh, this is what I did here. This is why I did this here, and so on and so forth. But it was all due to my training. And of course, all the slides that the PERIA program takes you through are invaluable. And the knowledge center that they insert there on the PERIA homepage, the knowledge center was invaluable to me too. Whoever, for future students, you should probably start with the knowledge center before you do anything else to just educate yourself on that.
Awesome. So basically, Survivor for appraisers, they dump you in the jungle after the first 10 and see if you live or die on the last 3.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's a good way to test the knowledge for sure. Now, I'm also hearing, and it's interesting, that you each had a connection to appraisal through an appraiser, connection, friend, associate, but for various reasons that didn't really work to go through the traditional pathway of getting the experience to get your license and certified credential. But you each have some exposure to writing a report for a client in the real world, kind of in the jungle, so to speak, versus in the PERIA program where the data and everything is provided for you. I'd love your perspective on the difference between writing the reports on these 13 case studies or examples that you do in PERIA versus what your experience or exposure so far has been to writing an appraisal report for a lender client, for example, or any other client. But Chris and Pete, love to hear kind of how those compare between PERIA and live client, live appraisal assignment type of assignment. What are the differences and similarities there?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is I feel like you have more information in the real world, obviously. In Appraisal Institute, how they have it set up, it's some of the stuff you're going to go onto the county website and try to access different things through there. But most of the time, it's going to be Excel spreadsheets, information that's kind of pre-approved for everybody to see. So you kind of know what they're looking for in terms of what kind of adjustments we're going to be looking for. Maybe they'll provide some cost analysis. So you're kind of plugging that in based on what you're seeing a lot of the time. In the real world, there's a lot more information to take. You can build your kind of own information based on the MLS, which is really helpful. And then another massive thing is just using technology in the real world as opposed to in the Appraisal Institute. Through PERIA, there's not really the chance to do that there because they're trying to teach you how to do it, as you would 20 years ago with a clipboard. Now it's like I have access to all these different ways of, coming up with information, delineating it in a way where I don't have to go in there and physically mark down every single thing that I'm looking for and kind of analyze it based on that. So real world, a little bit easier to find information and kind of not have to do so many things that kind of take up a lot of the time in the PERIA side, which is understandable when you're learning, obviously.
My experience with my friend Jesse, once again, it was strictly limited to measuring houses. And so I did not actually do a report. The closest I got to a report with Jesse was the sketch. He did take me through the sketch. So that was familiar to me with PERIA. That is, I think, one of the limitations of PERIA that, you don't really go measure a house, but that experience that I got with Jesse, which hopefully, start working with him again, I'm already going to know about even more features of the sketch. The sketches that we did for the PERIA assignments, but that was my experience just in the real world. I would imagine, like Chris was saying, that once I start working on my own or with Jesse, I'm going to have an array of information at my disposal so I could use it. But once again, if I had not gone through PERIA, I wouldn't have known what to do with that information. Now that I've gone through the program, okay, so this is for maybe like a market condition adjustment and so on and so forth, or this is how you do an adjustment for an additional restroom and so on and so forth. So very valuable as well.
Beautiful. Well, boy, just great perspective and answers. It is. I'm excited. It's late all of our times here, and I'm enthused despite that. Hearing your stories and seeing you guys march through it. So, if you are talking to prospective students, who in your opinion would excel in PERIA? What kind of worker, learner? Do you have any advice there?
Yeah, I would say, the first thing would probably be driven, which I think me and Pete both showed that with the way we went at our our PAREA program. And then the other thing would just be problem solver. There's a lot of different ways that you could analyze information when you're going through this program, and there's a lot of ways to kind of reach similar answers. So it's important to kind of be able to be self-sufficient and kind of figure things out yourself, and not have to go running back to your mentor every time there's a little issue. And then the other thing would probably be the last thing is just not being afraid to ask what seemed like dumb questions. Because like Pete, I came into this, I had some knowledge in like the construction industry, but I was a layman in terms of appraising. So I asked a lot of what would now, if I heard them being asked, were probably very dumb questions, especially to a professional that's a mentor. But yeah, just not being embarrassed to be like, hey, I've tried, I don't know what this is, and kind of being open to that.
Same thing. I mean, I don't think I could have said anything better than Chris. I mean, Chris hit it, the nail right in the head. Just driven, motivated, bet on yourself, believe in the process. There, at no point during PERIA did I ever feel lost. Whether it's going through the slides, which in my opinion they're sequential. There's a rhyme and reason for them. As I got going in my assignments, I tried to depend less and less on Dana and just going off on my own. But like Chris said, not be afraid to ask questions. I've never been afraid to ask questions. That's what we expect from our teachers in the school that I work in. Ask questions. Even if you think it's dumb questions, but we ask questions because that's how we learn. So other than that, kudos to Chris for that answer, because that was perfect.
Well, and I'll say, I think that extends beyond just a good candidate for PERIA or advice, for a PERIA student. I think that applies to the appraisal profession in general. If you're motivated, hard charging, a problem solver and curious, I mean, those really resonate for me, Chris, because of course, you've got to be willing to interrogate a question or a challenge. Do I have all of the data? Am I understanding what's going on? But then also the willingness to try to, know when you need help and to reach out, but then also to know when to try to solve the problem and come up with the best answer you can. Fact checking or bouncing things off of people, with whether it's a mentor in PERIA, whether it's a business partner, whether it's a colleague through a professional organization. There's a ton of value in that, but I find that the appraisers that learn the fastest and are the most successful have those characteristics, as just part of who they are, and, regardless of how they come into the profession. So what you're saying really resonates for me.
Boy, Jeff, as you're talking and listening to Pete and Chris, I feel the same, that I'm learning that there's a lot of the more subjective aspects of PERIA that are really either training to or selecting for people that can get through PERIA but will be good appraisers. That decisiveness that is necessary. You look at all the evidence and all the data that you got. At some point, you got to make a decision. And I think one or both of you described, look, I got to send this report in to Dana or whoever your mentor was, and they're going to rip me apart if I didn't. But I got to make a decision and get moving. And boy, do we feel that in the real world as appraisers as well. There's risk that's out there, making wrong decisions, or the clear answer just isn't obvious most often.
Yep, for sure. Well, having kind of interrogated a little bit the process and what it was like going through the program, writing reports, getting feedback from your mentors, tell us a little bit about where you guys are at currently, licensed, working towards taking the test. What's your current status as of this moment?
Yeah, I, for about probably a month and a half, got my residential license. And I have been working, kind of shadowing for the past month with the guy I'm going to be working with here in San Antonio. But yeah, I'm kind of helping write reports when I can, hoping to get a couple that he'll send me here in the next couple days. But yeah, just trying to learn, the measuring part was a big part, that we didn't get to do a lot of the time. And I didn't really think about how difficult that might be in certain scenarios. I never thought about, the second floor is going to be a different setup than the first floor. So we're going to have to cut that out, maybe have to go inside and cut that out. So it's still a lot of learning, just different stuff. So I've just been powering through, looking to start writing some reports here in the very near future.
I am very, very excited. I mean, I have my own routine right now. I'm doing CompuCram. For those of prospective students, if you're afraid of the test or whatever in your particular state, at least here in Texas, I mean, a lot of us have testing anxiety, but I mean, I'm doing CompuCram right now. I've been doing it this is my third week, I believe. I hope to be attempting the test for licensed residential probably either by the end of the month or maybe for sure by next month. And then hopefully if I pass the test, of course, networking, starting with my friend Jesse. I already have experience measuring houses. One of the houses that we measured before I started this, I'll never forget. It looked like a regular 2-story house, what do you call, actually no, it looked like a 2-story house, but it looked like it had been there was additions to it. And so we went inside the house and it was not like we were expecting. There was hallways where they were not supposed to. There was a weird staircase in another section. And my friend Jesse, kudos to him once again. He didn't bat an eye. He's very experienced. It's like second nature to him. He said, this is what you do here. This is how you're going to measure this room. This is how we're going to put it in the sketch. So I feel very lucky that at least the physical part of it, although I'm completely a novice at that, I have maybe I helped them with maybe 10 to 15 houses, something like that. But we measured 1-story homes, we measured 2-story homes. We measured a humongous house that it was kind of like in a weird placement in a cul-de-sac. And that was very interesting because it was a very large house. And so I got experience with that. But I'm very much looking forward to first things first. I need to focus on my exam prep. Once hopefully I cross that bridge, then we will start moving forward with, starting to get some assignments. I'm going to ask Jesse for a lot of help on how to set up an LLC, I guess, and how to, network with people. I heard that through TALCB, I believe they put you on a list or something like that. So I'm a complete novice at that, but I'm a strong believer in everything, will come. You just need to focus on one thing at a time. Well, right now we're doing a test prep, and then we'll cross those bridges when we get there.
Beautiful. Well, what great stories, and kudos to the state of Texas for seeing the first 2 through here, and hopefully the second license will be coming here shortly. This is a joint effort by stakeholders and bodies all over the country, and these state appraisal boards, of which Jeff is part of one in Utah, are very critical to making all this work. So exciting that this is happening here. So as we talked about, Jeff and I, is we're all learning, kind of what did this program produce in you two and the folks that are following out of you after you. What kind of problems do we have? Have we created new problems? Is there more training needed? So your future plans you've touched on a little bit, but how do you think about your readiness to be doing live assignments on your own? Is your plan to be working closely with your appraisers that have been doing live work, post-graduation? Do you feel that some can come out and be ready live? I'd be interested in your perspective on that.
Yeah, I would say I definitely needed some time and still need some time to kind of shadow. There's just a whole lot of things that you don't experience real world, navigating all the AMCs, how to sign up, if you can actually get assignments as a new appraiser. So right now I'm just kind of trying to get assignments kicked over to me. I'll fill them out and then send them to what is not technically my mentor, but is going to kind of be acting in that capacity. Read through my assignment, make sure everything's okay just for the first, until he feels comfortable with me, going out solo. essentially. But again, I'm signed up and I'm ready to go. But it's very different real world. So I appreciate the time to still get my feet underneath me, and kind of experience, even how my company wants things to go, as far as sending the invoices to the home office, what needs to be reported, when it needs to be reported, and all that kind of stuff is something that is not covered in PAREA, and you wouldn't expect it to be, because every one of them is different. So.
Chris, just a quick follow-up. As you're getting started doing work with your company, I think I heard you say you're planning to get certified residential. If so, are you planning to do the PERIA module or do that through experience with this company, or do you have direction on that yet?
Yeah, I'll be doing it through just experience. I thought coming into PERIA that it was going to be an option to just do certified residential or licensed. And it turns out there is the option, but it's essentially doing each course separately. But in the real world, you're kind of doing the same thing with the exceptions of a few limitations. So I thought there was going to be the option to just kind of do more assignments, maybe higher values. But yeah, instead of going back through that, I feel like I have kind of the core work in the theoretical, and then I'll be real work. So I feel like that's the easiest and the smartest way to go for me to get the certified residential.
As far as I'm concerned, I know what tacos Jesse likes, and so I plan to bribe him. I think we have one of the best tacos here in Laredo, so I know exactly what he likes. I know what drinks he likes. And so I'm going to go under his wing. I'm going to beg whatever I need to do, because I agree with Chris. I feel prepared, but I still feel that, especially like the physical part of it, like the measuring again, I need to get that under my belt again. I would like, obviously, for him to guide me just on some assignments until I feel ready. Theory wise, I feel that I'm ready. I feel that I know the rhythm of a report. I know how to analyze it, and I know what goes where. But like Chris said, it's different in the real world. And so, but once again, I believe everything happens in a sequential order. Once I bribe Jesse with tacos or whatever I need to do, I'm sure he'll help me go through it, maybe for a few assignments, and then off I go. Because I'm also like we said, I'm self-motivated. I try to be very careful in what I do. I cross my T's, dot my I's, and I won't go into something unless I feel secure enough that I could do something on my own. And I feel that with my experience with PERIA, I feel that I have a very good foundation. And so I too am going to get, because I spoke to somebody at TLCB, and the licensed residential module gives me 1,000 hours. So the additional 500 hours that I need for certified residential, I'm going to do it here in the real world, and then hopefully try my certified residential exam after I get those additional 500 hours. So.
I love it. It helps to see kind of how you think about these go forward plans, having the exposure obviously to licensed residential module of PERIA, and now also some exposure to experienced appraisers that are out there working in the real world. You each have a connection to somebody that's out there. And just as a side note, Pete, for whatever it's worth, if you ever find yourself in Utah, I'm not beyond being bribed by tacos either. So hit me up, and we could get you a few hours of experience as well while I stuff tacos in my face. But
fun fact, there is such a thing called the Laredo Taco Company, which they're all over the place. They might even be in Houston and in San Antonio, but there is such a thing, the Laredo Taco Company. That's what we're known for here. But yes, absolutely, Jeff. If I'm ever in Utah, I'll deliver some tacos to you.
One of my favorites is on Washington Avenue called Laredo. I wouldn't have thought that it was connected, but maybe it is.
All right, next time I'm in town, Mark, we're going to go check it out. But well, you guys, we really, really appreciate you sitting in and just giving us kind of a behind the scenes look, firsthand account of what it's been like, what led you to want to get into this profession in the first place, to go the PERIA route. it just the real life stories, I think, really help put some personal context around this thing that's been talked about for a very long time, and now to see it actually lead to you getting licensed and a pathway to get certified is really exciting. So Chris and Pete, we both want to express a very heartfelt thank you and appreciation for coming, for sharing your stories and perspectives. Thank you for kind of blazing the trail. I know that the first time through a program like this, it's not going to be flawless, but it's sure fun to see you guys coming out the back end and on the front end now of I know will be a successful appraisal career. So congratulations to both of you, and thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.